Cali X Boxing. I am here on this Thursday. It is Thursday. The week is flying by, another week flying by. And we're almost to, dude, we're in the fourth quarter. We're almost to the end of the year. It's incredible. This year's been flying by. Y'all make sure to hit that like button as you come in. There's a no fanager zone. Leave your fanager talking points at the door. Boxing fans speaking to other boxing fans about how we can further our agenda as boxing fans. That's what we do here. What we will not do here is cheerlead pay-per-views. We will not pocket watch. We will not do anything of the sort. We would talk about fighters. We will speak about fights. We won't talk down on anybody unless they come at us sideways first. This is just what we do here. So welcome to Calix Boxing. Welcome to the chat. And make sure y'all are leaving your comments in the chat. Make sure y'all have y'all's gloves up in the chat. Put those gloves up in the chat. Welcome back. And we are here on this Thursday. And there's some breaking news. We got Inoue versus Tapalis is announced for December 26th. So we'll have Inoue going for undisputed in back-to-back years. Undisputed at 118, undisputed at 122. And the dude continues to add to his legacy. But I've been told from American boxing fans that it's bad that he fights on Tuesdays. You can't fight at Tuesday morning. You cannot fight on Tuesday morning and be a big name fighter. You cannot do it. You can't do it. It's not good to fight on Tuesdays. Tuesday mornings, because he fights on Tuesday mornings, he cannot be fighter of the year. He cannot be. People are still stuck in their boxes, right? They're stuck in those boxes. We have a lot of domestic level boxing fans here in America, and they just cannot see or think outside of their boxes. So in a way, going for undisputed again. And it's great. And it mirrors his undisputed run at 118 in that the tough part was at the front end. The easier part will be on the back end, but it's still a great accomplishment nonetheless. If it wasn't, then a lot more people would be doing it. Undisputed back-to-back divisions, much like Bud Crawford. It's a great achievement. Great achievement. Shout out Team Batman Boxing. Thanks for putting those gloves up in the chat. OJ22. Tszyu about to dominate, and Janabek should do a job also. Yes, and we'll talk about both of these at the top of the show right now. I'm hyped for Inoue as always, as am I. Appreciate Santeo Media coming through. And I got to give a shout out to my guy, Sal, Mr. Boxing Guru, who blessed me with this hat, man. I bought this hat on Saturday from him, purchased it on Saturday. And everybody knows that I'm a hat collector. I'm a hat connoisseur, right? So particularly about my hats, this is a high quality hat right here. Purchase it from him. You see the boxing there, and then you see that emblem right there, the Mexico emblem right there. So shout out to him. High quality hat that I pay for him. But this is the best part. Generally, when I order from dudes in the boxing community, order stuff, try to support them, it feels like I'm giving them a donation. It feels like, the reason I say that is I get the product and it's not great quality. And on top of that, I wait a long time for it. The best part about this is high quality, number one. Number two, I waited 3 days for this. Ordered it from him Saturday, shipped it out. I get it on Wednesday. I ordered some hats from Lids on Friday. I still don't have them. So he's getting the hat to me before the big box hat company is getting it to me. So shout out to him, man. Mr. Boxing Guru, if you want one of these, man, go look on Twitter or X, whatever they're calling it, and cop a hat from him. Chicano Prophet, appreciate you rolling through. Very special fighter. Enjoy the monster while he's around. Fight fans, I agree. I like the hat. It brings out the Latino on Calix. And look, Remy blessed me. Remy told me I'm Mexican. That's what Remy told me. I have 0% Mexican blood, but Remy told me, Calix, you're Mexican. I give it to you. I hand it to you. And Remy has that power to hand that over to me. He says, you're Mexican. So not only that, I go out and get this beautiful hat with that emblem on the side. So now I'm hardcore, full-blown Mexican-American boxing fan. That's where I'm at. So put some respect on Mexican-American boxing. That's what I'm saying out there. Felipe Bajarano, thanks for the thoughtful content, Calix. Not easy to come by these days. I appreciate that. And I want y'all to notice how I was starting to roll those R's too. Y'all notice that? Those R's, since Remy told me I'm Mexican, I got this Mexican hat. Those R's are rolling heavier now. They're rolling heavier. You heard how I said that? Bejerano. 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 I went out last night, ate some linguea. You know, that's for you non Mexicans out there, that's cow tongue. It's a cow tongue taco. You know, and now I'm rolling those R's. Bejerano. Bejerano. So, Team Batman Boxing, my guy, Wheelchair Man John, in the building as well. So we got a lot to talk about. Inoue versus Tapales, just mentioned that, and we'll have a lot of time to talk about that and the achievements of Inoue and what he's doing is great for the sport of boxing, even if he's fighting on Tuesday mornings. I'm sorry that hurts some of you in here in America, that you have to wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock on a Tuesday morning to watch a fight. Oh my God, but it's still doing good ratings on ESPN, and the dude is doing 8 figures over there in Japan, and you want him to come over here and fight in America. I don't know what to tell you. So the middleweight division is in shambles. And I have other stuff I want to talk about too. I'm going to talk about Leonard Ellerbe, him flying off the top rope at me, the pay-per-view cheerleaders coming after me again, all of this stuff. Bernard Hopkins' interview with Joe Rogan and how he says, you know, Showtime Boxing's going away and these promoters and managers are going to have to start getting creative and fighters are going to be looking around and saying, hey, where are my fight dates? Hey, I just bought this Lamborghini. I just bought this Ferrari. Should I be downsizing? Should I go get a Toyota Camry? We'll talk about all of that. First, we got to get into Janibek, versus Vincento Guiltelli and Tim Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza, because I want to hit on those real quick. Shout out OJ Blaze. I appreciate that. Now that you're repping to walk out Canelo, and I'm a Santa Fe Clan fan now. Santa Fe Clan been bumping it heavy in the truck. Shout out to Santa Fe Clan. Maybe I'll have him over on a show one day to talk about his groundbreaking music that he's been doing out there. Tim Tszyu, let's talk about Janibek first. Look at this right here. Look at the 160-pound division. This is in shambles. This is ground zero. This is what ground zero looks like in boxing. This is the middleweight division currently, which has been in shambles since Canelo moved up. And of course, the champion is going to be vacant because who the hell are you going to give that to? I was watching this the other day. I saw a video of this and I saw a picture of Gennady Golovkin promoting his energy drink. And he looks like 250 pounds right now. He looks like if he shrunk 2 inches, he'd be a perfect circle. Like, I don't expect Gennady Golovkin to come back. I just don't. And this coming from a Gennady Golovkin fan right here. Mexicans for Gennady Golovkin right here. But the dude, I don't think he's ever coming back. If he does, it'll be some sort of token fight. I don't know what to tell you. But Janibek, when Janibek is seen as a boogeyman, you know the division is bad because nothing against Janibek. He's a good fighter. But there are fighters out there that have been labeled boogeymen and monsters that are not boogeymen and monsters. I don't get it. Janibek at 160. And we've talked about Benavidez at 168 and why he's labeled the monster and the boogeyman, right? It's because Canelo is there. Excuse me. And you look at Hrgovic at heavyweight, and then you watch these guys fight, and you're like, they're good. They're good fighters, but I don't see a boogeyman. Like, I don't see a boogeyman right there. And that's how I feel when I watch Janibek fight. I watch him fight Denzel Bentley. I watch him fight these guys, and I'm like, he's good. It's a good fighter. But where is this great, special Kazakhstani monster that I was promised? This Kazakhstani boogeyman. They're trying to make him out to the next Triple G. Triple G was a real boogeyman. I'll stand on that forever. He was a real boogeyman. But Janibek is not that guy from what I've seen so far. Maybe he will be. But he's still doing things that are more meaningful than everybody else in the division. And that talks about how bad this division truly is. This guy, look, Janibek versus Gualtieri is a unification fight, fellas. That's how bad this division is. When you think Janibek versus Gualtieri, do you think unification, middleweight unification? Is that what you think? No, but it is. It's like we talked about the other day with Hoflation, right? It works with everything. With boxing inflation, everything is just inflated these days. Wholeflation, the concept of men having to work 20 times harder than their grandfathers did, for women 20 times worse than their grandmothers were. This middleweight division, compared to where it was, is atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. This is wholeflation. This is inflation. This is boxingflation. This is what this is. This is what it looks like, fellas. This is what it looks like. Our sexy divisions are no longer sexy. And look at the middleweight division. Gennady Golovkin. Besides Canelo, this dude hasn't wanted to do anything for a couple years. At least he unified against Murata. We got to give him that. And we got to give Janibek at least a unification here. He's doing something more meaningful than the rest of the division. But look at the rest of the division. The only time we hear about Carlos Adames is in false rumors about possibly fighting Canelo Alvarez. I can't believe they tried to spread that rumor, by the way. I can't believe they used that poor guy as a pawn to try to get Carlos Adames some sort of buzz, right? Because he can't create it on his own. Erislandy Lara has a belt. Erislandy Lara is a WBA champion, for the love of God. And still, dude, they're going to try to make Erislandy Lara versus Danny Garcia. They don't have the money to do it right now. They don't have the money in the budget. That's why Showtime Boxing disappears in the fourth quarter. Other than pay-per-views, they did it in 2022. They're going to do it again in 2023. They're going to disappear other than pay-per-views and other than a Tim Tszyu fight. Derevyanchenko, Eubank Jr. This is an atrocious division, fellas. Atrocious. But I expect Janibek to win this fight. He's a 13-1 favorite. It's not all that intriguing of a fight, but he will win. I expect him to win by knockout as well, but not all that intriguing of a division. But this is an intriguing division, fellas, on the flip side. 154-pound division. Good Lord. Good Lord. And by the way, this is September 30th Ring Magazine ratings. They haven't updated since then on their website. So they still have Jermell Charlo as the champion, undisputed champion, which he no longer is. Tim Tszyu has been elevated. And Jesus Ramos is still there at number 6. You got Brian Mendoza there. And that brings me to this fight. Let's start it off with this. Tim Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza. Tim Tszyu is sort of the anti what a lot of other fighters have become in boxing. And I'll talk about this when I talk about Leonard Ellerbe coming up shortly. A lot of people in America try to make it about things that it's not. They'll use surface level issues and other things, nationalistic issues, as to why a lot of American fans have flocked towards fighters from other countries as opposed to fighters from America. And Tim Tszyu is sort of an example of a fighter behaving like a fighter. And I sort of don't understand why people would not be attracted to Tim Tszyu in a way. I'm not saying you have to be a fan. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to be a fan, but you have to at least give him credit for doing something that other fighters are not willing to do. Take Frank Martin, for example. What does Frank Martin do? The planets didn't perfectly align. The stars didn't perfectly align. The North Star wasn't at the right point in the sky. The temperature wasn't perfect. So he couldn't fight Shakur Stevenson for his career high payday by 8 times over, fellas. That's what we're looking at from Frank Martin. 8 times over, he was about to be paid his highest payday to fight Shakur Stevenson. And when you're looking at Showtime where it is, and apparently he has an exclusive contract with Showtime in the PBC, why wouldn't he grab a fight date? And why wouldn't he grab it for 8 times more than anything he's made in his career? And it's better than anything that's going to come to fruition anytime soon for him other than a Tank Davis fight. And you could argue Tank Davis is a bigger fight, fair enough, but when's that going to come? And he has to change his name from Martin to Martinez to get that fight. He's got to change his name to Franco Martinez to get a fight with Tank Davis. And you know what I mean by that. Look at Tank Davis' resume, and you'll understand what I mean by that. So when is the fight date going to come from Frank Martin now? He's going to have to fight on somebody else's undercard to get a fight date. Good luck getting anything close to 1 million for that. People keep telling me that fighters want to fight. It's the business holding them back. The fighters want to fight. I don't know if I believe you. When I see examples like that, and there are plenty of examples like that of modern day fighters doing things like that, modern day fighters losing their belts on the scale and then still begging for the champion to fight them and feeling entitled feeling entitled to that fight, even though they dropped their belt on the scale. I see that type of behavior, and a lot of people reward that behavior. A lot of fans reward that behavior. Yeah, that guy deserves to be the A side in a pay-per-view main event. Yeah, the guy who ducked 2 fighters simultaneously in the same year deserves to be the B side fighter on a pay-per-view main event. So why wouldn't fighters feel entitled to that? If they're getting it and they're getting good money to do it, and boxing fans are out here capping for them, and content creators are out here capping for them, talking about what a massive fight that is. But I see this type of stuff. I see Frank Martin turn down $1 million to fight Shakur Stevenson, and it tells me 2 things. It tells me, man, Shakur Stevenson must be a scary dude, right? If I see this full line of guys turning down that fight, and I see a guy turn down a payday that is 8 times greater than his highest payday to date to fight Shakur Stevenson, because there's not enough money for him to fight Shakur Stevenson, he sees it as, what that tells me is he sees it as an exchange in his mind. He doesn't believe in himself to win that fight, because if he did, he would be thinking long term, right? It's what I talk about Canelo all the time. Canelo didn't roll out of bed and become the face of boxing. That's not what happened. They'll try to make it out that way, but that's not what happened, fellas. What happened was this dude takes half the money to fight Austin Trout that he was originally promised and says, no, we're going to do it. No, Canelo, you can't do that. You can't take half the money and not fight on Mayweather's undercard to fight Austin Trout. Make the fight. Make the fight. Canelo, after fighting Trout, you should take an easier fight. Maybe we shouldn't do Mayweather. Maybe we should make the fight. Canelo, you just lost to Mayweather. You shouldn't fight Erislandy Lara 2 fights after fighting Floyd Mayweather. You shouldn't do it. He's got guys in his ear telling him this stuff. Make the fight. And dudes act like he just rolled out of bed and became the universal face of boxing just because he has red hair and he's from Mexico. That's not what happened. What happened was this dude was thinking long term the whole time. His interests aligned with our interests as boxing fans. That's what happened. He's thinking legacy the whole time. And that naturally ties into our interests as boxing fans, because legacy fights are good fights. And that's what we want to see on our TV. So I like to see good behavior rewarded from fighters, and that's why it rubs me the wrong way. So when I see a Frank Martin turn down $1 million to fight Shakur Stevenson, the first thing it tells me is what? What do I say all the time? One of the reasons we can judge a fighter is how their peers in and around their weight class behave when that fighter's name is brought up. And when I see Shakur Stevenson's name being brought up at 135, it's like guys just run for the hills. So I say, like, they're telling me he's the best fighter at 135. Even with no belts, his peers are telling me he's the best fighter at 135. That's what they're telling me. Who else would Frank Martin behave like this towards at 135? I don't know. So that's number one. The second thing it tells me is maybe fighters don't want to fight. Maybe they want easy paydays. And who the hell is out there looking for Frank Martin at this point? Who? Because you'll have these same content creators who are coming at me for saying that Benavidez versus Boo Boo isn't a pay-per-view. You'll have those same guys saying, hey, he doesn't feel like 1 million is worth it. So be it. It's like, all right, so be it. So be it. Let him disappear. I'm not looking for Frank Martin now. I don't care who that dude fights. And where the hell is he going to fight? What app is he going to fight on? Whose undercard is he going to fight on? You think that guy is going to get a main event now? You think that guy? You think Top Rank is going to try to do business with Frank Martin going forward in cross-promotion fights? And fellas, I'm warning you this. I'm telling you this. And I watched Bernard Hopkins' interview with Joe Rogan, and he's telling you, Showtime Boxing, I don't see them lasting another year. All right, so guys are going to have to get creative out here. These promoters, these managers, these advisors, fighters are going to start to look and say, where'd my money go? I just bought a Ferrari. Should I downsize to the Camry? Where are my fight dates? Why are my pockets seeming lighter here? And I'm telling you, these fighters are going to have to get more aggressive. When D-Style and Beeb talk about this reset, the greater the reset is, and the sooner it comes, the better it is for us. And don't feel bad for saying that, by the way. We have to look out for our own interests as boxing fans, right? So when you're on apps, which I heard Leonard Ellerby make fun of apps, right? I've seen the Showtime and the PBC guys make fun of apps, right? And it looks like everybody's going to be on an app in boxing soon enough. You're going to have to actually promote. How many real promoters do we have in boxing? I see people out there, and D-Style will even do it to me at times and say, you know, why are you reposting Dana White clips and all this stuff? It's funny to me because Dana White is saying the same stuff that we say, but we don't like when Dana White says it. We have this complex in boxing that we can say it because we're boxing people and we got to keep it in the family. But anytime anybody outside of the family says the same stuff that we're saying, we got to be critical of them. No, what Dana White is saying is correct. Dana White, when he speaks, he sounds like a promoter. And I can understand how people are drawn to that and people get FOMO over it. It's like this dude is talking about the Sphere. I'm going to put on the greatest combat sports event of all time on Mexican Independence Day in the Sphere. Watch me do it. Watch me do it. Whether it's true or not, I like to hear promoters speak this way. I've been conditioned as a boxing fan to hear boxing promoters. Some of them don't even speak. Some of them are mute. Some of them send network execs out there as their press secretaries. So you'll have network execs acting like promoters. And then you'll have the shadow promoter, say a Tom Brown. Nobody even knows what that guy's voice sounds like. And then you'll have guys who are breaking the Muhammad Ali Act right there, right in front of everybody, calling themselves advisors and not doing any interviews. And then you'll have a 92-year-old promoter who has the most sustainable model out there, but he's 92. So can he really promote in the sense of promoting? Does he have the energy to do that? Then you have Matchroom, then Matchroom USA. Eddie comes over here and promotes a fight that's in Arizona, going to be in Arizona. He's promoting it in Florida. Oscar De La Hoya, God only knows what he's doing half the time. So it's beautiful to see a combat sports promoter behaving like a combat sports promoter. We're not used to it in boxing. We're just not used to it. But what Bernard Hopkins is saying is you better start getting creative. Because things are changing. And things are changing quick. But that brings me all the way back to Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu does the opposite of a Frank Martin. Tim Tszyu says, look, Mel, you got that energy, you got that injury, okay, I'm going to go make a fight. And then he makes a fight, and it's the best opposition available to him at that time. Mows him down. Mel, you ready? You ready yet? You ready yet? No, still not ready? Still not ready? Okay, I'm going to go make another fight. Makes another fight. He does this quarterly and says, all right, I'm going to make another fight. Goes and mows that guy down. The best opposition available to him mows him down. Mel, are you ready yet? Are you ready? Still not ready? All right, I'm going to go mow down Ocampo. I'm going to do it in 30 seconds and I'll be back. And then he does it again. I'm going to go get bit by a pit bull. 2 weeks before the fight, tears my arm up. Pitbull attack 2 weeks before a fight. Still fights the fight. Last 30 seconds. Mel, are you ready yet? Mel goes, fights Canelo. And why that's important is a lot of fighters would have just waited around. Is the vacant belt available yet? We talked about this at 147 ad nauseum, right? Boots, waiting around, vacant belt. Virgil, waiting around, vacant belt. Stanionis, waiting around, vacant belt. When's the vacant belts coming? When's the vacant belt? Instead of putting pressure, they take step-aside money. They petition the wrong sanctioning bodies. What Tim Tszyu is doing is the same thing Shakur Stevenson's doing at lightweight. Put pressure on the champions to fight you. If they don't, you fight the best fighter out available to you. And in order to do this, you have to have a belief in yourself. And it seems like that is going extinct. Fighters who believe in themselves, fighters who will take on short-term risk for long-term gain. Once again, Canelo. They will brainwash people into thinking that Canelo rolled out of bed looking like Richie Cunningham, Mexican version, and that's the reason he got all his fans. And that's not what happened. It's not what happened at all. It's not what happened at all. I have never seen revisionist history surrounding a fighter like I've seen with Canelo. It's amazing. I saw dudes online yesterday, and some of these dudes are friendlies. They're allies. I like them. I like their accounts, but Canelo breaks people's brains, man. He tends to do that to dudes. He will break their brains. I see dudes doing slow motion videos of Canelo opening up wide and then freezing it, right? Freezing it. And say, oh, if Bud gets a hold of that. What would Bud do to those openings? It's like, bro, relax. First of all, what is the problem with that? The problem, I'm going all over the place, but the problem with that is those openings tend to close when it comes to fighting better fighters. We saw that with Errol and Bud, right? Dudes did these videos ad nauseum like crazy when it came to Bud versus Avanesian. Oh, if Bud, look at these openings that Avanesian had when it came to Bud, and look how many times Avanesian hit Bud. And then what happens? Bud fights Errol, and those openings are closed. Why? One, it's a different stylistical matchup, number one. And number two, he respected Errol more, so he closed the openings. It's almost as if Canelo didn't respect Mel Charlo from the jump. He said, I'm going to fight however I want to fight. I'm going to go right at him. Do you think he'd fight the same way against Bud Crawford? Think about it. Just think about it. But when it comes to Tim Tszyu, why is he growing on a number of boxing fans on different continents right now? Why is it happening? Because I see it happening right in front of my face. I see the numbers. When you talk about Tim Tszyu, you'll see the numbers grow, not only in Australia, but in other countries. Tim Tszyu moves the meter. He does. And Tim Tszyu is doing all the right things. That is why. It's no more complicated than that. It's not because he's white. It's not because of any of that stuff. The dude is behaving like a fighter, and he looks like a real fighter. He behaves like a real fighter. He's entertaining. He's skilled. He fights multiple times per year consistently. Fights the best opposition available to him. He's fun. He wants to knock guys out. If the knockout presents itself, he's going for it. It's no more complicated than that, fellas. So Tim Tszyu here is fighting Brian Mendoza. And a lot of boxing fans from America would say it's probably not a smart move, right? Even if it's a unification, why not wait for the bigger fights? Because what's happening at 154, fellas? You have fighters with bigger names and more flash. Maybe not more substance, but more flash moving into the division. Bud, substance, yes. But Bud's moving into the division. Errol's moving into the division. Virgil's moving into the division. And Virgil is coming back on January 6th, by the way. Virgil Ortiz will be back January 6th. I'm assuming it's a stay busy fight. I'm assuming they'll see how his body reacts to getting down to 154 to see if he can compete in that division long term. Virgil's moving into the division starting in January. Conor Benn possibly moving into the division. So some boxing fans would say it's smart to just wait around. It would have been smart to wait for Mel to see what he does. It would be smart for Tszyu, instead of putting himself in danger, putting his belt in danger against a Brian Mendoza, to wait for those guys, the easier fights, possibly with the bigger names. But what does Tszyu do instead? I'm a fighter. Why would I do that? I like to fight. I want to fight. I stay in the gym. Why not fight? I'd rather fight than spar. I'm going to wait for these guys for years. How they've been behaving at 147, I'm going to wait for them for years. How about I just fight? And that's what he's doing again. And he's putting his belt on the line against Brian Mendoza, who is a dangerous fighter. He showed that against Sebastian Fedora. He showed that if you put your chin in the air, if you make some mistakes, I will exploit them and I can put you on the canvas. And that's who Tszyu is fighting. Tszyu has been told since the Gausha fight that, maybe we can get to your chin. Tszyu has been told by the American public that you have to prove yourself to us. You have to prove yourself to us. Forget that our fighters here in America are lacking big time and are not proving themselves to anybody for the most part. We're non-existent north of 154. We're non-existing south of 135. If we're being honest, if we're being real, we have 15 of the 68 major belts, and like 11 of those belts come from 3 fighters. What are we doing here? And we're telling Tszyu, you need to prove yourself to us. And Tszyu is saying, all right, bet, let's do it. Let's do it. That's infectious. That energy is infectious. Why would you not want to be a fan of that guy? If you're just a boxing fan, if you're not tribalistic, if your only tribe is a boxing fan tribe, if your only tribe is I just want to see good fights, why would you not be attracted to that? And what rubs me the wrong way is when they throw out ulterior motives as to why you would be attracted to certain fighters. Canelo is the easiest example of it, of course. But you could do it with Inoue. You could do it with the Bud. It's universally people have adopted these fighters because they're great fighters and they want to fight the fights. You give them the opportunity. They want to fight meaningful fights. They care about legacy. They fight title fights. They've all hovered around 20 title fights in their career. They're doing what you want them to do. Why not be attracted to that? 3 different fighters, 3 different backgrounds, 3 different shades. You can throw out those examples, but you'll still be accused of other things, ulterior motives, for liking certain fighters. And we'll get it again with Tszyu. But what is Tszyu doing? He's fighting the fights. He will beat Brian Mendoza, in my opinion. Brian Mendoza will have holes in his game. I still see the guy who lost to Jesus Ramos, and nothing against Jesus Ramos, good fighter, solid fighter. I thought he won the fight last weekend, although I wasn't a fan of how he fought the fight. But Mendoza, he's a wild card because you got the guy who fought Fedora, but you also have the guy who fought Ramos. But I still see a gap here between Tszyu and Fedora. I see a good stylistical matchup for Tszyu. I think Mendoza will be there for Tszyu, who will catch him in those trades, who will be able to time him. His timing is much better than Mendoza. So there's a skill gap. And on top of that, there's a theory out there, and it's fair. We'll see how it plays out Saturday. There's a theory out there that Tszyu has fought multiple great fights in a row, has looked great, and he's due for a bad performance. He's due for an off night. I think the opposite. I think we have a guy here who hears a lot of the things that are being said by American boxing fans that I still don't know about this guy. He still has a lot to prove. And he sees himself and he's like, I'm doing this stuff that the American fighters are not doing. I'm fighting the fights. I'm fighting everybody available to me, the best opposition available to me, and I'm beating them. I'm knocking them out. What's the problem? And I think there's a chip on his shoulder. I think there's a chip. I'm tired of people picking the upset over me. I'm tired of people saying maybe my chin is a little chinny. I'm tired of people saying that I'm not a great technical boxer. I want to go out and prove it. I'm tired of being called Costa Tszyu's son. That's part of it too. There's a natural chip on his shoulder. And I think we're going to see that again on Saturday. And another thing they said yesterday, I saw an article, is this is our Australian fight. We're coming to America after this. And we want the big fights. We want those big fights. And those big fights will develop. So I like Tszyu to beat Mendoza by knockout here. I like it by stoppage. Let me show y'all something. This was breaking news earlier, and I think this is ESPN Deportes, I believe. Salvador Rodriguez. Anuncio, make a war K, Virgil Ortiz regresa el 6 de enero en las 154 libras. Ha pedido la clasificación en esta categoría en la OMB. And by the way, this is how you can speak. You can speak Spanish when you put this Mexican hat on. You see that right there? That emblem. And you're handed over the keys to Mexico by my guy in the chat, Remy. You can speak Spanish like that. Notice how my R's are rolling better. But in all seriousness, announced that Virgil Ortiz returns on January 6th at 154 pounds in his requested classification in this category in WBO. Pay attention to that. So that's news, right? And other news is at 154, the WBO champion, Tszyu, has a fight against Brian Mendoza next week. And to name him mandatory challenger, they will be waiting for Terrence Crawford's decision to move up in category. So there's a lot of moving parts here at 154, but it's all exciting. And what you hope is the welterweights moving up to junior middleweight don't turn this into what we've seen at welterweight in the past couple of years. You hope that the 154 energy stays at 154, and it affects some of these welterweights moving up to junior middleweight. That's what you hope to see, because the first domino to fall will be, first of all, let's see what Tszyu does this weekend. Then we'll see if Errol Spence fights Bud Crawford in a rematch right away. And I just don't know how that happens. I don't know how you sell that fight. I don't know how you make money off of that fight, because who the hell would want to see that beatdown again? Who the hell would realistically believe that just because you're moving up 7 pounds that the result is going to be different? I don't understand. So is there a scenario in which Tszyu fights Bud Crawford next year, and then Errol Spence becomes some sort of mandatory, and then Virgil Ortiz gets in there as well, and Conor Benn will be in there? And this is exciting times at 154, fellas. It's exciting times. Hopefully we get some of these fights made at 154. And I'll say this as well, because it needs to be said. We all need to get on the same page here when it comes to Canelo and Bud Crawford. And don't get me wrong, I would buy the fight. I would buy a fight between Canelo and Bud. I would buy it. But we need to get back to weight class business. Canelo versus Bud comes off as sort of a novelty fight to me. It's another undisputed versus undisputed, and we've done that. We just did that. We just did undisputed versus undisputed. What we want to see is the weight class business be taken care of for both fighters. I want to see Bud Crawford get to it. Get to it and say, I'm moving to 154. Let's get to it. Bud, let's get to it. I want to see these more natural fights between legendary fighters who are up there in age, right? Canelo, Bud, many fights up there in age, legendary fighters. To me, this is the best part of careers from fighters. I want to see Canelo, 64 fights in. I want to see how he handles and deals with a young lion in the division. I want to see the same for Bud. I want to see Bud move into 154 right off the jump and say, Tszyu, that's the guy. That's the guy, Tszyu. Let's do it. Let's do it. Tszyu, Bud Crawford versus Tszyu in Vegas. Let's go. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. I want to see what Mel does. How does Mel bounce back from his loss at 168? Does he go away like his brother? Or does he move back down to 154 and say, hey, I'm still the dude. I'm still that guy. You may have stripped me. I may have had to vacate that one, but I'm still the guy. I'm that guy. So I'm moving back in, and Bud's going to have to beat me, or Tim's going to have to beat me. That's the type of energy I want to see from fighters. And let's get back to weight class business. And I want to see what happens November 25th between Benavidez and Boo Boo Andrade on pay-per-view. It's still hilarious, by the way. It's hilarious. Pay-per-view. How they moved the goalpost on us, by the way. Benavidez versus Boo Boo on pay-per-view. It's just amazing. And the pay-per-view cheerleaders, boy, how they came after me. Again. Why would you not want to pay $85 for a Happy Meal? Why would you not want to? Are you anti-fighter? Are you anti-McDonald's? Because you don't want to pay $85 for the Happy Meal. No, I mean, I like the Happy Meal, but I'd like to pay $5.99 for it. That's what it's worth. How do you know what it's worth? You're not a power broker. You're not in the boardrooms. You don't know what it's worth. The market will dictate what it's worth. Good luck selling that fight on pay-per-view. Good luck. Oh, you're just hating on PBC. You're just hating on people. I just said the same thing about Haney versus Prograis. Prograis is one of my favorite fighters. You see how easy that is? He's one of my favorite fighters. He is not a pay-per-view level fighter unless the A side is a true A side pay-per-view fighter, which Devin Haney is not. I'm sorry. Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou is $79.99 in America. For the love of God. that does look, that does prove to me, though, that you can sell anything. Like, if you can sell Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou to people for $79.99, if there are people who are actually going to buy that, you can sell anything. Good Lord, you can sell land in Antarctica right now if they can sell that. $85 for Andre, never. I'd rather set that money on fire. They're going to come after you too, Nando. Are you anti-fighter? Do you not like seeing fighters get paid? Dude, I like seeing them getting paid. That's good. But as Bernard Hopkins alluded to yesterday on the Joe Rogan show, you guys are going to have to start getting creative, because this has been an unsustainable market for forever. This has been an unsustainable market for a long time. And we've tried to warn you that this is going to topple. And some sort of pay reset is coming. And when dudes call you anti-fighter, first of all, these are the dudes who call fighters bums, say fighters are ducking when they're not ducking. They'll do it all the time. They don't have a problem with people doing it as long as those people are on their side. They just don't like it because you're doing it to their favorite fighter. That's all that is. They're trying to diffuse the situation. Right? So we should be able to say that the sky is blue. We should be able to say that Benavidez versus Boo Boo Andrade is not a pay-per-view fight. Remember when Canelo fought Ryder? And I did the breakdown that week. And I said, I like this fight. I think Ryder's better than people expect. I want to see the atmosphere in Mexico. I think this is an entertaining matchup. It's going to be a fun fight for Canelo. I think he wins easily, but it's going to be fun. And in my household, I'm going to buy it. But at the same time, I understand if you believe this is not a pay-per-view level fight. I fully get it. Never during that week did I say, you're not buying Canelo versus Ryder? You broke boy, you piece of human garbage? Never did I do it. Never did I say, you must be a broke boy. You must be broke. You must be broke. Never did I shame people for not buying that fight. It just didn't happen. The market will dictate if it's a pay-per-view level fight. And that's that. Once again, it's so easy. But I'm telling you, the market is going to dictate that Benavidez is not a pay-per-view A side. He's not, especially not against Boo Boo Andrade. And when it comes to this, needs to be highlighted again. That whole orbit at 168 revolves around Canelo. And boy, am I going to be called a fanboy for that once again. You're not hugger. You're not hugger. But their whole existence, all these fighters, they try to tie themselves, the management, the promoter, the advisor, they're trying to tie themselves to Canelo. All of them. All of them. It's why these fighters felt entitled to the fight or were promoted as if they deserved the fight without actually fighting anybody else in the weight class. So what do we say now? We say this is a good year for Benavidez if he beats Plant and Boo Boo Andre in the same year. It's a good year. Once again, it's a level-headed take, right? This is all level-headed, I think. This is a good year. It's a good year. He beats two good fighters. He beats Plant. He beats Boo Boo Andre. It actually puts him in the top 10, I would say, of fighter of the year talk. It puts him in that top 10 as best years, right? He fought twice, number one. I mean, God forbid fighters fight twice in a year now. And it's two quality fights. And he's doing finally what we've been asking him to do for 9 years. It's good. But it's not a pay-per-view quality fight. And they still have to promote Benavidez as the boogeyman for Canelo. They have to do it. They have to do it because Benavidez on his own cannot stand as a star. And it's what Nando has said in the chat. And what we've been saying for months now. That's a shame because marketable fighter, seems like a good dude, exciting fighter. He's good. So he should be able to stand alone. But this is what happens when your career is mismanaged. And this is my problem with boxing fans when they cap for managers and promoters and when they go and interview a Steven Espinoza and call him the savior of boxing, the messiah of boxing, and Showtime's the messiah of boxing is, why are you doing this? Why? They're making so many mistakes. They've destroyed the foundation of boxing. A David Benavidez has been chronically mismanaged and mispromoted throughout his career. He just has. He shouldn't be at this point. And they're probably sitting there saying, hey, I'm doing what you asked me to do. Content creators are out there saying that right now. He's doing what you wanted him to do. What's the problem? First of all, no problem. I'm glad he's doing it. Glad he's getting a payday. Number two, the reason I'm saying it's not pay-per-view is you can't cancel out 9 years of doing what they were doing with two fights. You just can't do it. It's a track record thing. It's a track record thing. Boxing fans who are just attracted to fighters who fight the fights, no matter what their skin color is, nationality, religion, whatever it is, I don't care about any of that when it comes to boxing, are not going to be fooled over a two-fight run. They're just not. You got to put together a handful, right? You got to put together a career, and then people are going to start to trust that. People think that Oscar De La Hoya rolled out of bed and said, hey, I'm going to hand the baton to Mayweather or Pacquiao. That's not what happened. Those guys earned that shot. They already had a Hall of Fame career before that, so people trusted them with the baton once they got it. And boxing is littered with examples of fighters creating their own baton just by fighting the fights. So our question is, why aren't you doing that? And it's a lack of trust from, remember, two things. How do their peers in and around their weight class think of them? And how do their handlers handle them? If you see the handlers handling them like a fragile UPS package, that's a red flag. That maybe this fighter is not who they're promoting him to be. If I have to build this whole fighter's existence around another fighter, around being the boogeyman for another fighter, then maybe this guy can't stand alone. Maybe this guy isn't that dude. And once again, it comes back to Tszyu. Tszyu saying, I'm gonna go create my own buzz. Whoever, line them up. Dude, I'll fight every 2 months. You want me to do that? I'll fight 4 times a year, 3 times, whatever you want me to do. Line them up. And as boxing fans, we are thirsty for that type of behavior. Boy, do we need that type of behavior because there's a vacuum for it. And we've been saying it for years. The dude who ignores minimums, the dude who is willing to fight on any network, the dude who keeps his freedom, the dude who just fights the fights, he's going places, especially if he's talented and entertaining. That guy's going for places. And that's why I say, man, I've been saying it all of 2023, and I'll continue to say it. Tszyu being a star in boxing is as sure as the sun coming up tomorrow morning. I'm telling you. Y'all can keep doubting it all you want. It's going to happen. Tszyu is going to be a star. He's going to be a universal star. I'm telling you. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And hopefully they can get him the fights sooner than later. Yeah. Allow me to indulge y'all for a minute. I don't know if y'all saw this happen. No, this isn't. No, that's not that. Hold on one second. I think this is it. So I put this tweet out last week. And let me take this comment down so y'all can see it. I put this tweet out I think that's Friday. I put this out. Truly is baffling how someone can go from fighter of the year to possibly not fighting at all the next year. But that's what could happen with Dimitri Bivol. Terrible management. It goes back to management, right? And people may accuse me, I'm sure this is coming, of, since I'm a Canelo fanboy, right, that I'm going to go naturally after the guy who beat him. And that's not the case. And I think the people in the chat know this. How many times I big upped Dimitri Bivol last year, called him fighter of the year, clearly fighter of the year, top 5 pound for pound guy. And he should keep that going in 2023. But what happened? He didn't. He talked his way out of a Canelo fight. And people will say, well, Canelo didn't really want that fight. He was bluffing. Well, call his bluff then. Call his bluff. I'd like to see it. But he didn't. His manager talked him out of that fight. You possibly have domestic problems going on at the Bivol household. Who knows? Innocent until proven guilty. We'll see. But no fights lined up. Nothing. It's been 11 months since this guy fought and nothing happened. But look at the timestamp right there. Look at it. 10:32. And I bring this up for two reasons. Number one is we can call out multiple fighters. But the main point, number one, is how many fighters are squandering opportunities? How many? How many are thwarting momentum? How many times is this happening? And that's why we call Tszyu the anti-this. He's the anti-this. He sees a big universal fan base out there. I guarantee you they see it. And they're saying, we're going after it. We're going after it. These dudes are squandering it. We trust our ability. We will go fight fights, even if it's for short money, because we see the long-term gain here. We see that we're going to be in big fights. We see how the picture in the landscape is developing at 154. The big fights are going to be there. We just have to keep fighting the fights and build ourselves first. Work on ourselves first. Don't wait for anybody else to make me a star. I'm going to go make it. And this once again proves that the baton thing does not work. You have to put in the work first. You have to develop trust from the boxing public. And then you have to run with it after you get it. This dude, if he did grab the baton, he just went backwards. He went backwards with it. But look at the timestamp there, 10:32. My BFF, Leonard Ellerby, look at him. He quote tweets my tweet. And this is a tweet I put out earlier. Deontay Wilder turns a year inactive next week. No fight, nothing signed. Weak resume, getting weaker with each day inactive. But I've been assured the Saudi bag will drop in his lap any day now. And once again, common sense, right? The dude hasn't fought in a year. I think it's a year on Friday. He hasn't fought in a year. Nothing signed. Nothing. He's fought 30 seconds in the past 2 years. 30 seconds. I should be able to call this out as a boxing fan, right? Like, I'd like to see the dude fight. You got something going? Like, we doing anything? Nothing? Again? Nothing? Okay. Nothing? Still nothing? All right. Nothing. But look what this dude does. So no mention of Bivol? He turns a year Let me take this banner down real quick so you can see the timestamp. No mention of Bivol. He turns a year inactive next month. No fight, nothing signed. I guess this only applies to BBC fighters or no. And look at him. Shrug. 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 Look at the shrug emoji. He's crying. He's laughing. He's laughing so hard, right? And then he goes like this. And then he goes like that. Look at the emojis. Look at Leonard. Cry. Cry. Shrug. Shrug emoji. That's Leonard, my BFF. And D-Style tells me he can smell my tweets. That's why he always comes. And dude, if I ever get 81,000 followers, there's just no way, dude. There is no way I'll be quote tweeting a dude with 2,000 followers. There's just no way. And then on top of that, act like you got other stuff to do. Please act like you got other stuff to do. You should feel like you're above this behavior, above preaching down to consumers and race baiting to your consumers. I know you only have like 1 or 2 fighters and you got plenty of time on your hands, but for the love of God, dude, like this beta male behavior. Cry, cry. Shrug emoji. Look at the timestamp. 10:34. 10:34, fellas. So look at this. I send this tweet out at 10:32 a.m., 10/6/23, criticizing Dmitry Bivol and his terribly managed career. Got nothing going on. Criticizing his inactivity. And at 10:34 a.m., this dude puts out, why aren't you criticizing Dmitry Bivol? What are you doing? What are you doing? All you had to do is look at my timeline. But he's too busy race baiting. This is what he does. It's the whataboutism, and he's doing it for a reason. The race baiting thing happens. Why? Because they have, like, Leonard has no argument here. Leonard has no explanation as to why Deontay Wilder hasn't fought in a year. And I'm confused as to why he's reacting to this, because Deontay Wilder isn't even his fighter. That's not even your fighter. If I was talking about Raleigh, okay. Why in the world does this dude keep flying off the top rope at me? I don't get it. Do you have nothing better to do? Look at the timestamps. All he had to do was go back 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's all he had to do. Go back 2 minutes. Dude, it's a fresh tweet. 2 minutes. Still hot in the oven. 2 minutes. That's all you had to do. Why don't you criticize Dmitry Bivol? I wonder why. I wonder why. Shrug emoji. I wonder why. Yeah, I wonder why. You must be racist. You must have tiki torches in your closet. And all he had to do was go back a minute and a half and see me criticizing Dmitry Bivol for the same exact thing. The dude is unbelievable. Look, man, I think I've told y'all this before. And I'll tell y'all this again because it certainly applies here. Boxing as a whole, and this is a whole. This isn't just power brokers. This isn't just, it's content creators. It's a lot, especially with the content creators, because you have a lot of content creators who are here for the wrong reasons. They'd rather be talking about the NFL or social issues or whatever. Maybe the NBA, maybe baseball, who knows? But they can't get audience in there because it's oversaturated, right? So they have to build an audience somewhere where they feel they can get an audience. So they gravitate towards the most dumbed down audience in boxing, and they know it's a cult niche market in which you can gain a following on YouTube. And then they gain that following, and that's their Trojan horse. And then they start talking about what they want to talk about. But my point is, it's full of unimpressive dudes. Unimpressive dudes are naturally attracted to boxing because they feel like they can build a base there. They feel like they can make money there. And they can't do it in other places. And Leonard Ellerbe is a perfect example of this, because of all the unimpressive people in boxing, he is the most unimpressive. For the love of God, man, you just see this dude and he's just out there. And he's just saying stuff. And you're like, He's just saying shrug emoji. He's just saying stuff. None of it makes sense. And you're like, how unimpressive is this dude? How is anybody impressed by this dude and his behavior and what he says? Completely unimpressive. A completely unimpressive person. That's what I say about Steven Espinoza, too. You just see this dude fly off the top rope at people, raise bait, and then he's out there giving interviews in front of his lapdogs. Just lapdogs. And they'll give credentials to the lapdogs. And then the lapdogs will ask their lapdog questions. And then they'll give the answer. And then dudes act like they're reinventing the wheel. And you're like, these dudes are unimpressive. Look at what they're doing to the sport. Look at it. Look at what the sport has become. It's truly baffling when they call this the greatest year in boxing in decades. It's like, are you awake? Are you awake? Look at what they're charging you. This is the Marlo Stanfield School of Boxing is what it is. Y'all ever watch The Wire? What did Marlo Stanfield do from the first episode on in The Wire? He takes over all the corners. Anybody from any other crew annihilates them, says you do not belong here, get away. You're gone. Or else. They leave. He takes over the corners. Why? Because crackheads are immobile and they need their crack. He goes to the co-op, dismantles it, and says the price of the brick is going up. Business is done here. He dilutes the product, and then he charges the crackheads more for it. So the crackheads are coming back at a higher rate because the product's diluted, and they're paying more for it. That's boxing. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. And if The Wire goes on, because The Wire ends, I think season 4, with Marlo knocking somebody out on the corner, and then it ambiguously ends. But if it goes on in real life to season 5, season 6, that dude either dies or he ends up in jail. That's how it ends. It's a faulty business model because you have to get your money quick. It's a rat trap. It's rat poison. You got to get it quick, and then you got to get out. Anybody who sticks around is gone. But it attracts entrepreneurial minds who can't get money, maybe in the white collar business world. I don't know. Quick buck, get out. But this, how the boxing business is run, is similar, and it's baffling when you see people praise these dudes. They're raping and pillaging the sport. It's what Bernard Hopkins has been talking about on the Joe Rogan show. It's like, you better get creative. You dudes are going to have to run a real business. You're going to have to promote. You're going to have to pay these fighters what you promised them. You're going to have to co-promote. When I see stuff like this, I'm saying, these are the dudes making fights? These dudes. These are the ones making fights? These are the ones you're impressed with? And what it is, man, it's a defense mechanism, and it's an attack without having to debate, without having to compete in the arena of ideas and have a conversation. They're afraid of conversations. Leonard Ellerby knows he can't come out and defend his business model. So what's the easy thing to do? It's just to raise bait. Whataboutism, right? Deontay Wilder, what about this guy? About this guy? For another promotional outfit, different shade of color. About him, why not? Why not? Yeah, I wonder why. Shrug emoji. It's a defense mechanism. He can't defend, and it's not even his fighter. Why is he even trying to defend him? Don't you have something better to do than go after boxing fans who would like to purchase your product? I'd like to. If you put out a good product, I'd like to purchase it. Maybe we should talk. Maybe I could help you out. I don't know. But this is what we talk about, man. None of these dudes are impressive. It's not just him. It's the power brokers. It's the content creators. It goes back to wholeflation. We're getting 20 times less and paying 20 times more for it. It's Disney. I saw a Disney tweet earlier that Disney is about to start charging 9% more for Disneyland and Disney World entry. And have you been to Disney World recently in Disneyland? I have. I went to Disney World last year. I went to Disneyland earlier this year. It's terrible. It's awful. It's an awful product. It is not what it was even 3 years ago. And they're charging more for it. Inflation, wholeflation, products are getting worse. You're paying more for it. And boxing is no different. So forgive me if I'm not going to praise these dudes who are doing this. You're going to need to get creative. Fighters are going to have to fight. I don't want to hear any excuses. You're going to have to fight. We need more dudes creating pound for pound lists. It's simple things. We need content creators and publications creating pound for pound lists that make sense. You shouldn't have fighters in your pound for pound list that are 12 months plus inactive. Let's start forcing their hand. Let's start forcing fighters to fight. Let's start criticizing power brokers who aren't working with other power brokers to make fights that don't make sense. That makes sense. I mean, for the love of God, we should all be in this together, right? I'm missing some stuff here. Let me see. And my apologies for not getting to the comments today. Let's see. Prediction for the middleweight unification. Janabek early and often. That's going to get ugly. Janabek. And what a terrible division. But I appreciate the super chat. Deed 3440. Appreciate that. But I like Janabek. Watchdogs greater than lapdogs. Just be a boxing fan. Right? Just be a boxing fan. Call them out. Demand what you want. Don't be afraid to do it. Appreciate my guy D-Style Boxing. And y'all make sure to go to the round table tonight, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Y'all on the West Coast, I think that's 4. Mountain Time, I think that's 5. And my guy Nando, appreciate the $4.99 super chat. I always appreciate you rolling through. So I appreciate all the super chats and all the comments. I'm going to read them while I'll play back the show in the truck. Not in the truck. I'm not going to read comments when I'm in the truck. But I'll read them when I watch on my phone tonight. Snow White is a feminist that doesn't like Prince's men anymore. Disney has lost. I think I saw that too. I think she doesn't need a man, right? I think D-Style was telling me that. Snow White doesn't need a man. Good Lord. Good Lord. Yeah. I think we're all on the same page here. Salute to Remy, who gave me, once again, let me say, he gave me the Mexican lineage. He says I'm Mexican now, and that's where look at that emblem right there, Mexican emblem. I'm now full-blown Mexican. Y'all hear me rolling the R's now, right? Getting better. I'm getting better. You can get 4 rides the entire day. What? What deal? Yeah, it's terrible, man. Don't go to Disney. It is terrible. It is terrible. It's awful. It's god awful. It's horrible. It's horrible. But Ellerby for the round table. Yeah, get him on. Get him on the round table. Let's see if he is a friend of the show. Let's see if he can come on the round table. Leonard Ellerby. But look, man, none of this is personal for me. I call what I want as a boxing fan on whatever platform I have, right? And one of the reasons you get what you get from certain content creators is they come in it for different reasons. Like I said, for wrong reasons. One of them is they Trojan horse and they try to build the base and then go into other things. But the other thing is they come in for money and then they realize that the AdSense money isn't there. So they tap dance for the super chats and they have to go cover events. They have to do interviews because that's what brings in the audience. They're not going to sit here and do an hour show by themselves in front of a camera. They're just not going to do it because it doesn't build the base that they want to build, right? They need interviews. They need clickbait. They need to go out and cover events, and they have to act like a journalist without acting like a journalist. And what I mean by that is they can't behave like a journalist because they don't want to lose the access to certain fighters and managers. Even if the managers and fighters are feeding them false information because they know they'll report on it, they'll still cap for those fighters. They'll still do it. Nobody's going to come on here, man, like it's like we did 13 years ago and just talk about fights and just put out what you want to put as a boxing fan as far as content, and then just chop it up with people that have similar views as you and just do it for fun. The money that I made in AdSense in like July, August, I bought a mic with it, and I bought an interface with it. I can't even figure out. Chauncey's trying to get me to figure out this interface. I can't even figure it out. I bought headphones with it. I'm not trying to get rich off of any of this. And the only reason I bring it up is that's why you get a lot of the content you get. Dudes are in this for the wrong reason. And that's why we have nobody out there representing us. They don't represent us. They will not speak out for you. They will not speak out for your interests. So don't feel bad. That's the only thing I preach. Do not feel bad for speaking out for your own interests as boxing fans. Do not let them brainwash you into thinking that doing that makes you anti-fighter or anti-this, anti-that. We're not anti-anything. We are pro-boxing fan. We are pro-boxing. That's it. On that note, I'll be back tomorrow. God bless. Peace.